What if everything you've been told about money is completely wrong? Right now, millions of people are grinding through their days, convinced that their financial struggles come from external forces beyond their control. They blame the stock market crash, the government's policies, their boss who won't give them a raise, or simply bad luck that seems to follow them everywhere. Has this ever happened to you? You work harder, stay longer hours, cut every possible expense, yet somehow you're still living paycheck to paycheck, wondering why abundance feels like a distant dream reserved for other people. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Here's what might shock you. Your bank account has absolutely nothing to do with the economy, your job title, or even how hard you work. What you're about to discover might surprise you, but every dollar that flows into or out of your life is controlled by something far more powerful than any earthly institution. It's controlled by divine law. These aren't the kind of laws you learned about in school or read about in financial magazines. These are spiritual frequencies that operate completely independently of worldly circumstances, responding not to market conditions or government decisions, but to your personal alignment with universal principles that have governed abundance since the beginning of time. Think about this for a moment. Why do some people seem to effortlessly attract wealth while others, equally intelligent and hardworking, struggle their entire lives? Why do lottery winners often end up broke again within a few years, while others can lose everything and rebuild their fortunes seemingly overnight? The answer lies in understanding that money is not random, not political, and certainly not personal. It's obedient to spiritual law. If you're currently experiencing financial stress, limitation, or that constant feeling of never having enough, I want you to consider a radical possibility. You're not unlucky, you're not cursed, and you haven't been forgotten by the universe. Instead, you're simply out of alignment with the divine frequencies that govern abundance. This misalignment creates a spiritual disconnection from what is actually your natural birthright, a life of prosperity and flow. Most people spend their entire lives trying to fix their money problems by changing external circumstances, getting a better job, moving to a different city, learning new skills, or following the latest investment strategy. But what if the real issue isn't out there in the world, but within the invisible realm of spiritual vibration? What if your financial reality is simply mirroring back to you the exact frequency you're unconsciously broadcasting every single day through your thoughts, words, and beliefs? Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will completely transform not just how you think about money, but how money responds to you. There are 7 specific divine laws that control every financial transaction in your life, and once you understand how to align with them, now I want to go even deeper into this hidden truth that completely revolutionizes how we understand wealth creation. The most profound revelation behind financial transformation isn't about working harder or finding better opportunities. It's about recognizing that money responds to vibration, not effort. This might sound abstract at first, but think about your own journey with money. You've probably noticed people who seem to effortlessly attract opportunities, while others grind themselves into exhaustion with little to show for it. The difference isn't talent, education, or even luck. It's the energetic frequency they're broadcasting into the universe every single moment. Every thought you think, every word you speak, every belief you hold about. Money creates a specific vibration that either magnetizes abundance toward you or repels it away. When your internal frequency is aligned with prosperity, money flows naturally. When it's misaligned, you can work 24 hours a day and still struggle financially. This is why some entrepreneurs build million-dollar businesses while others with identical strategies fail repeatedly. The uncomfortable truth is that you cannot outwork spiritual misalignment. No amount of hustling, grinding, or pushing harder can compensate for contradictory beliefs and misaligned energy running in the background of your subconscious mind. It's like trying to drive forward with the parking brake engaged. The harder you press the accelerator, the more resistance you create. Most people live their entire lives trapped in this exhausting cycle. They believe that success comes from more action, more sacrifice, more hours invested. They follow every business strategy, attend every seminar, read every success book, yet their bank account remains frustratingly stagnant. The missing piece isn't another technique or tactic. It's understanding that your energetic blueprint determines your financial reality. This transformation in perspective changes everything. Instead of chasing money through force and struggle, you begin attracting it through alignment and flow. Instead of feeling powerless against economic circumstances, you realize you hold the remote control to your financial experience. Through your vibrational choices, the 7 divine laws operate on this exact principle. They work through frequency, not force. They respond to your spiritual decisions about who you are and what you deserve, not your physical efforts to manipulate external conditions. When you align with these laws, money begins moving toward you with the same inevitability that water flows downhill. The revelations behind this process are both simple and profound, requiring a complete shift in how you approach wealth building. Rather than asking, "How can I make more money?" the question becomes, "How can I become the kind of person money naturally flows to?" This brings us to a revelation that most people never discover in their entire lifetime. You are essentially operating as a spiritual bank every single day, whether you realize it or not. Every word that comes out of your mouth functions as either a deposit or a withdrawal in your energetic account with the universe. Every thought you entertain generates interest, either positive or negative, that compounds over time and directly impacts your financial reality. Think about the conversations you've had just this week. When you said, "I can't afford that," you made a withdrawal. When you complained about being broke, another withdrawal. When you joked about your financial struggles or spoke about money with fear and anxiety, you were essentially telling the universe to deduct funds from your spiritual account. But here's the fascinating part. When you speak about abundance, express gratitude for what you have, or declare your financial goals with confidence, you're making substantial deposits that accumulate spiritual interest. This hidden mechanism operates behind the scenes of your daily life, silently recording every financial thought and translating it into your lived experience. Most people unknowingly bankrupt themselves spiritually through careless speech and negative thinking patterns, then wonder why their physical bank account reflects the same emptiness. The transformation happens when you realize that these 7 divine laws aren't motivational advice or positive thinking techniques. They're precise spiritual codes that function with mathematical accuracy. Just like entering the correct combination opens a safe, aligning with these laws in exact sequence unlocks the vault of divine supply. There's no room for approximation or casual application. They either work completely or not at all. This is where most people miss the mark. They treat spiritual principles like suggestions they can follow when convenient, mixing and matching according to their mood or circumstances. But divine law doesn't bend to human convenience. It operates on the same unwavering principles as gravity or electricity. You don't negotiate with gravity. You either align with it or face the consequences. The impact of this understanding completely shifts your approach to wealth building. Instead of hoping for financial breakthroughs, you begin engineering them through precise spiritual compliance. Instead of leaving your prosperity to chance, you start operating the exact codes that govern universal abundance. The journey from financial struggle to abundance isn't about learning new strategies or finding better opportunities. It's about recognizing that you already possess the master key to unlimited supply, your conscious alignment with these divine frequencies. The vault has always been there, waiting for someone who understands the combination. The revelations within these laws expose why traditional financial advice often fails and why spiritual principles consistently produce results for those who apply them correctly. Write in the comments, "I'm ready for the codes," if you're beginning to see how this spiritual framework could transform your relationship with money. Now here's where this gets really interesting. 99% of people will never discover these laws, because they're too busy chasing money through conventional strategies that actually work against spiritual abundance. They're caught in an endless cycle of panic and striving, applying external tactics while remaining completely locked out of the inner sanctuary where true wealth is generated. Watch people around you and you'll see this pattern everywhere. They're following the latest investment trends, switching careers hoping for better pay, cutting expenses to the bone, or starting side hustles that exhaust them. Behind the scenes, they're operating from fear, scarcity, and desperation, the exact frequencies that repel abundance. It's like trying to tune into a radio station while broadcasting static on the same frequency. The hidden truth that changes everything is understanding that money has no moral character whatsoever. It's neither good nor evil, virtuous nor corrupt. Money is completely neutral. It simply responds obediently to whatever vibrational frequency you emit, serving whoever commands it through proper spiritual alignment, regardless of their background, education, or even their perceived goodness. This revelation dismantles so many limiting beliefs that keep people trapped in financial mediocrity. You don't need to be more deserving, more educated, or more worthy to attract abundance. You don't need to sacrifice your values or compromise your integrity. Money doesn't judge your past decisions or current circumstances. It only recognizes frequency. Think about this for a moment. Money flows to drug dealers and saints alike, to college dropouts and PhD holders, to people with perfect moral records and those with complicated histories. The determining factor isn't character assessment, it's vibrational alignment. Money serves whoever speaks its language fluently through consistent spiritual frequency. This understanding completely transforms your relationship with wealth because it removes all the emotional baggage and moral confusion that clouds most people's financial decisions. You stop wondering if you deserve abundance and start focusing on becoming vibrationally aligned with it. You stop judging wealthy people or creating stories about why money avoids you, and you start operating the precise spiritual mechanics that govern financial flow. The journey becomes surprisingly straightforward once you realize you're not competing for limited resources or trying to prove your worthiness to some cosmic judge. You're simply learning to broadcast the correct frequency that money recognizes and responds to automatically. The impact of this shift in perspective is immediate and profound because it eliminates the internal resistance that sabotages most people's financial efforts before they even begin. Write in the comments, money is neutral, if this perspective is starting to reshape how you think about wealth and abundance. This brings us to a deeper understanding that revolutionizes everything you thought you knew about. Financial flow. Money is essentially spirit in motion, spiritual energy that has taken physical form and responds directly to the orders of those who stand in truth and proper alignment. It's not emotional, it's not personal, and it doesn't get offended or play favorites. Money operates as a neutral force that follows spiritual laws with the same mathematical precision as physics or chemistry. Think about this transformation in perspective. Instead of seeing money as something external that you need to chase, capture, or convince to come to you, you begin recognizing it as responsive energy that's simply waiting for clear, consistent direction from someone who understands how to communicate in its language. The hidden truth behind why so many people struggle financially becomes crystal clear when you understand that the universal intelligence governing abundance operates with extraordinary precision. This divine mind that orchestrates all financial flow will not release overflow into contradictory or confused vibrational states. It waits patiently, sometimes for years or even decades, for your internal frequency to match divine alignment before releasing financial supply into your experience. This explains why desperate people rarely attract abundance, why anxious entrepreneurs often sabotage their own success, and why those who most need money frequently repel it. The universe isn't being cruel or withholding, it's simply following its own perfect logic. Confusion creates confusion, desperation attracts more reasons to be desperate, and scattered energy produces scattered results. The impact of this revelation changes your entire approach to wealth creation. Instead of trying to force outcomes through willpower and intense effort, you begin focusing on achieving internal clarity and alignment first. Instead of wondering why your financial prayers seem unanswered, you start examining whether your vibrational signal is clear enough for the universe to safely respond. The journey becomes about achieving coherence between your conscious desires and your subconscious programming, between what you say you want and what you actually expect to receive. When this alignment happens, money begins flowing, not because you've worked harder or found better strategies, but because you've finally created the internal conditions that allow divine supply to move through you safely. Behind the scenes of every financial breakthrough is this same principle. Someone achieved vibrational clarity, and the universe responded with mathematical precision to their aligned frequency. Write in the comments, clarity over confusion, if you're beginning to see how your internal state directly impacts your external financial reality. This understanding leads us to one of the most counterintuitive revelations about wealth creation. True abundance doesn't flow to the cleverest people, the most educated, or even the most deserving. It flows to the obedient. Wealth is revealed to those who consistently align with divine spiritual principles through daily, exact, and unapologetic adherence to these universal laws, regardless of their background or intellectual capacity. You've probably witnessed this phenomenon without realizing it. The brilliant MBA graduate struggling with debt, while the high school dropout builds a fortune. The kind-hearted social worker barely making ends meet, while someone with questionable ethics enjoys abundant prosperity. The determining factor isn't intelligence, education, or moral character. It's spiritual obedience to the laws that govern financial flow. This transformation in understanding removes the frustration and confusion that keeps most people trapped in financial limitation. You stop wondering why life seems unfair or why your good intentions don't translate into material abundance. Instead, you begin focusing on the precise spiritual mechanics that actually control wealth distribution in the universe. Behind the scenes of every sustained fortune is this same principle. Someone discovered the divine laws governing abundance and chose daily obedience over occasional compliance. They understood that spiritual principles work through consistency, not intensity, and that alignment is a practice, not a one-time decision. The hidden truth becomes even more powerful when you realize that divine will actually supports your financial prosperity, not your lack. The biblical blueprint in 3 John, verse 2 states, "Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth." This isn't religious rhetoric. It's a spiritual instruction manual revealing that prosperity is part of your divine design. The impact of this revelation dismantles the guilt, shame, and confusion that many people carry around wealth. You're not being selfish by desiring abundance. You're aligning with divine intention. You're not taking from others by prospering. You're fulfilling your spiritual blueprint. The universe doesn't want you broke, struggling, or sacrificing. It wants you prosperous as a reflection of your soul's expansion and spiritual development. The journey toward financial transformation becomes a spiritual practice of daily alignment rather than a desperate chase for external solutions. You begin treating wealth creation as sacred work, approaching these divine laws with the same reverence and consistency you would any spiritual discipline. Write in the comments, divine obedience, if you're ready to approach wealth building as a spiritual practice rather than a worldly struggle. Now, this brings us to a revelation that completely dismantles one of the most destructive beliefs embedded in our culture. The false notion that poverty is somehow pious or that struggling financially makes you more spiritual. This couldn't be further from the truth. Poverty is not a virtue, scarcity is not sacred, and financial lack does not bring you closer to divine purpose. In fact, the opposite is true. You are meant to prosper because you are a vessel of divine identity, and lack contradicts your true spiritual nature. Think about this transformation in perspective. When you're constantly worried about bills, stressed about money, or exhausted from financial pressure, how much energy do you have left for spiritual growth, serving others, or fulfilling your higher purpose? Financial stress doesn't purify the soul. It distracts it from its true calling. The hidden truth behind authentic spiritual teaching is that your outer world reflects your inner condition. When your soul begins to prosper through spoken word, obedience to divine principles, and genuine expectation of good, money, and opportunities begin responding to you with the same natural inevitability that waves respond to the gravitational pull of the moon. This is where the real transformation happens, not through grinding harder or applying more external strategies, but through cultivating internal prosperity first. Your soul's expansion creates the energetic foundation that draws material abundance effortlessly into your experience. It's not about deserving more money, It's about becoming the kind of person whose inner richness naturally magnetizes outer wealth. Behind the scenes of every lasting financial breakthrough is this same principle operating. Someone aligned their inner prosperity with their outer circumstances, and the universe responded by rearranging physical reality to match their spiritual condition. The journey becomes about nurturing your soul's prosperity through conscious decisions about what you speak, what you expect, and how consistently you align with divine principles. The impact of this understanding shifts everything because you stop trying to manipulate external circumstances and start focusing on the internal transformation that makes abundance inevitable. You realize that your bank account is simply reflecting back to you the level of prosperity your soul has achieved through spiritual practice. The revelations within this principle explain why some people can lose everything and rebuild quickly, while others struggle for decades despite having all the right opportunities and resources. This understanding leads us to a crucial distinction that separates those who experience financial breakthroughs from those who remain trapped in intellectual understanding without results. These 7 divine laws are not meant for endless analysis, debate, or philosophical discussion. They're designed for immediate, practical application through spoken word, repeated practice, and complete embodiment until your subconscious mind accepts them as absolute truth. Most people approach spiritual principles like academic subjects. They study them, discuss them, analyze their implications, and try to understand every nuance before taking action. But divine law doesn't respond to intellectual comprehension. It responds to vibrational embodiment. You could spend years studying these principles without experiencing any transformation in your financial reality if you're not actively speaking them, practicing them, and living them daily. The hidden truth behind lasting wealth creation is that these principles function as spiritual frequencies that you must become, rather than tools you occasionally pick up and use. You don't dabble in frequency. You either embody it completely or you remain outside its influence. It's like trying to tune into a radio station by thinking about the frequency instead of actually adjusting your receiver to match it. This transformation requires a complete shift from knowing about abundance to becoming abundance itself. When you truly embody these frequencies, you stop trying to attract money and start naturally emanating the vibration that money recognizes and responds to. The journey becomes about aligning your entire being, your thoughts, words, expectations, and daily actions with the frequency of prosperity. Behind the scenes of every financial miracle is someone who stopped analyzing spiritual principles and started living them. They made the conscious decision to embody these frequencies so completely that their outer world had no choice but to rearrange itself to match their inner vibration. The impact of this approach is immediate and profound because your subconscious mind only accepts what you repeatedly demonstrate through consistent action and spoken word. Reading about abundance principles once or twice has minimal effect, but speaking them daily, practicing them consistently, and embodying them completely rewrites your internal programming at the deepest level. The revelations that come through embodiment rather than analysis create lasting transformation because you're not just changing your thinking, you're changing your entire energetic signature. Write in the comments, embodiment over analysis. If you're ready to stop studying wealth principles and start living them completely. Now, let me reveal the first divine law that will fundamentally transform how you approach every conversation, every internal dialogue, and every casual comment you make throughout your day. The law of the word operates on a principle that most people never grasp. Every single word you speak creates a spiritual mold into which divine substance is automatically poured. Think about this revelation for a moment. Your words aren't just sounds that disappear into the air. They're creative forces that literally shape the substance of your life experience. When you speak from fear, doubt, or limitation, you're creating scarcity molds that the universe fills with matching experiences. When you speak from faith, expectation, and abundance, you're creating supply molds that attract prosperity into your reality. The hidden truth behind this process is that the spiritual world operates with recording precision. It listens constantly to every word you speak and multiplies what it hears without questioning the wisdom, truth, or consequences of your statements. The universe doesn't filter your words through logic or protect you from poor choices. It simply responds to your vibrational instruction with mathematical accuracy. This means when you casually say, "I'm always behind on my bills," you're giving the universe a direct order to create more situations where you're behind. When you joke, "I'm so broke," you're programming your reality for continued financial lack. But here's where the transformation happens. When you consciously declare, "I'm abundantly provided for," you're literally molding your future experiences around that frequency. The impact of understanding this law changes everything, because you realize your mouth isn't just for communication. It's your primary tool for reality creation. Behind the scenes of every financial struggle is unconscious negative programming delivered through careless speech patterns that most people repeat thousands of times without awareness. The journey toward financial transformation begins the moment you take complete responsibility for every word that comes out of your mouth. You stop treating conversation as casual commentary and start approaching it as sacred creation work. You begin speaking intentionally rather than reactively, understanding that your words are literally building your tomorrow's experiences. The revelations that come through conscious application of this law are immediate and undeniable because you start witnessing how your deliberate word choices create corresponding shifts in your external circumstances. Write in the comments, "My words create my world," if you're ready to transform your relationship with language and begin speaking your abundance into existence. This brings us to a profound shift in perspective that most people never make in their entire lifetime. Your mouth was never designed to function as a thermometer that simply reports current conditions. It's meant to operate as a creative instrument that actively shapes and rewrites your reality with every sentence you speak. Most people spend their lives echoing their bank account balance instead of authoring their financial future through conscious word choice. Think about the conversations you've had this week. How often did you describe your current financial situation as if you were reading numbers off a screen? How frequently did you complain about bills, joke about being broke, or express worry about money? Each time you did this, you were essentially programming the universe to maintain those exact conditions rather than transforming them. The hidden truth behind lasting financial transformation is that you must stop treating your mouth like a news reporter and start using it like a master architect. Instead of saying, "I can't afford that," you begin declaring, "My supply meets every demand." Instead of complaining, "Money is so tight," you start affirming, "Abundance flows easily into my life." This isn't positive thinking, it's reality engineering through conscious creation. The transformation happens when you realize that until your speech becomes sacred and intentional, your money cannot become stable. There's a direct, unbreakable connection between conscious speaking and financial stability according to spiritual law. Your words either stabilize or destabilize your financial flow based on their vibrational frequency and creative power. Behind the scenes of every person with consistent financial stability is someone who learned to guard their words like precious seeds, understanding that careless speech patterns create chaotic money patterns, while deliberate declarations create steady abundance streams. The impact of this revelation changes your entire relationship with communication because you begin approaching every conversation as an opportunity to strengthen your financial foundation. The journey toward sacred speech requires vigilance and practice because most people have decades of unconscious programming to overcome. But the moment you commit to speaking only what you want to multiply in your experience, your entire financial reality begins shifting to match your elevated word choices. The revelations that come through sacred speech extend far beyond money because you discover that every area of your life responds to the same creative principle operating through your conscious word choices. Write in the comments, "Sacred speech creates abundance," if you're ready to transform your mouth into a tool for financial creation rather than financial reporting. Now, as powerful as conscious speech is for transforming your financial reality, there's a second divine law that works in perfect harmony with your words to create unstoppable abundance flow. The law of circulation reveals that money is meant to move, flow, and circulate, never to be gripped, hoarded, or held in fear. Money is literally spirit in motion, and like all spiritual energy, it expands when released in faith and contracts when held in fear, perfectly honoring whatever vibration you emit around it. Think about this transformation in understanding. Most people treat money like a precious resource they need to protect and preserve, clutching it tightly out of fear that there won't be enough. But this approach actually works against the very nature of money itself. Spiritual energy cannot multiply in stagnation. It requires movement, flow, and circulation to expand and return to you amplified. The hidden truth behind why some people effortlessly attract money while others struggle to keep it is found in their relationship with circulation. Those who understand this law release money with joy, confidence, and expectation of return. They give, invest, and spend from a place of abundance, knowing that circulation creates more circulation. But those who operate from scarcity grip every dollar, second-guess every expenditure, and unconsciously teach the universe that they don't trust it to provide. When you hold money in fear or hoard it out of anxiety about the future, you're essentially sending a vibrational message to the universe that you don't trust it to return your investment. You're programming scarcity into your experience by treating abundance like a finite resource that must be conserved rather than a flowing river that must be directed. Behind the scenes of every financial breakthrough is someone who learned to release money with the same confidence they have in breathing, knowing that what goes out will naturally return, usually multiplied. The impact of understanding circulation completely changes your relationship with spending, giving, and investing, because you stop operating from fear of loss and start operating from expectation of return. The journey toward mastering circulation requires rewiring deep survival instincts that tell you to hoard and protect. But divine law cannot multiply abundance in an atmosphere of suspicion, anxiety, or tight-fisted control. It requires flow, movement, and the kind of confidence that comes from understanding money as cooperative spiritual energy rather than competitive material resource. The revelations that come through practicing conscious circulation extend far beyond your bank account, because you begin experiencing how all forms of energy respond to the same principle of release and return. Write in the comments, "I trust the flow," if you're ready to release the fear-based grip on money and start circulating with confidence and expectation. This understanding takes us deeper into the mechanics of conscious circulation, because it's not enough to simply release money with good intentions. Every dollar you release should be accompanied by spoken declaration of its return. This single practice transforms ordinary spending into spiritual transaction that commands multiplication and activates the circulation loop with divine precision. Most people release money silently, hoping for the best, but not actively directing its return. They pay bills, make investments, or give gifts without ever speaking over the transaction or declaring their expectation of abundance flowing back to them. But when you add conscious declaration to every financial release, you're essentially programming the universe with specific instructions about how that energy should multiply and return to your experience. The transformation happens when you realize that tithing, gifting, and investing are not merely material decisions about moving money from one account to another. They're spiritual transactions that either expand or contract your abundance pipeline based on the frequency and declaration you bring to them. When performed with proper vibrational alignment and spoken word, these activities call forth exponential return rather than loss. Think about this shift in perspective. Instead of grimacing when you pay bills, you begin declaring, "This payment activates my supply channels." Instead of reluctantly giving gifts, you joyfully proclaim, "What I release returns to me multiplied." Instead of nervously making investments, you confidently affirm, "This seed produces abundant harvest in perfect timing." The hidden truth behind why some people experience miraculous returns on their giving while others feel depleted is found in this practice of conscious declaration. Behind the scenes of every financial miracle is someone who learned to speak over every transaction, turning routine money movements into powerful spiritual activations that command the universe's cooperation. The impact of this practice is immediate because you're no longer passively hoping that your financial releases will somehow benefit you. You're actively commanding their return through the same creative power that governs all abundance flow. The journey toward mastering circulation with declaration requires developing the habit of never releasing money silently again, understanding that your words are the activating force that transforms spending into spiritual investment. The revelations that come through this practice extend beyond personal finance because you begin witnessing how conscious direction affects every form of energy exchange in your life, from relationships to business opportunities to creative endeavors. Write in the comments, "I declare abundance," if you're ready to transform every financial transaction into a conscious spiritual activation through spoken word. Now, the first two laws we've explored create the foundation for abundance flow through conscious word and circulation. But there's a third divine law that bridges the gap between spiritual principle and physical manifestation in the most profound way. The law of assumption requires that you walk, speak, breathe, and expect as if your financial demonstration is already complete. Because in divine mind, it already is. What delays the visible manifestation is not divine timing or external circumstances. It's your own refusal to step into the feeling of completion. This transformation in approach challenges everything most people believe about manifestation because it requires you to live from the end result rather than working toward it. Most people operate from a vibration of striving, hoping, and waiting for their abundance to arrive. But this very frequency of expectation actually delays what you're trying to create, because you cannot manifest wealth while vibrating in a state of waiting or hoping. The hidden truth behind instantaneous financial breakthroughs is that someone collapsed the timeline and assumed the frequency of fulfillment now, living as if their supply was already released into their experience. They stopped asking, "When will my money come?" and started operating from, "My abundance is here now." They quit rehearsing lack through anxious waiting and began embodying wealth through confident assumption. Think about this shift in your own experience. When you truly assume something is already yours, you stop desperately seeking it. When you know your paycheck is coming, you don't panic about money. When you're certain about an outcome, you naturally relax into its reality. The law of assumption works the same way, but it requires you to step into that certainty before seeing physical evidence. Behind the scenes of every financial miracle is someone who made the decision to live as if their demonstration was already complete. They began making decisions from abundance rather than scarcity, speaking from fulfillment rather than lack, and expecting from certainty rather than hope. The impact of this practice is immediate because your entire energy field shifts from the vibration of seeking to the vibration of having. The journey toward mastering assumption requires releasing the need for external validation before stepping into your new financial identity. It means feeling wealthy before your bank account changes, acting abundant before opportunities appear, and expecting prosperity before circumstances shift. The revelations that come through consistent assumption practice transform not just your relationship with money, but your entire approach to creating any desired outcome in your life. Write in the comments, "It is already done," if you're ready to step into the frequency of financial completion, rather than continuing to wait for abundance to arrive. This practice of assumption isn't wishful thinking or self-deception. It's spiritual rehearsal that trains your body, breath, and cells to radiate the condition you command rather than the condition you currently experience. When you consistently assume wealth, you're literally reprogramming your nervous system, your posture, your decision-making patterns, and your energetic signature to match abundance rather than lack. Think about how this transformation works on a cellular level. When you genuinely feel wealthy, your body chemistry changes, your stress hormones decrease, your confidence increases, and you naturally begin making choices that wealthy people make. Your brain starts recognizing opportunities that were always there but invisible to your scarcity-focused awareness. This isn't positive thinking. It's biological and energetic reprogramming through conscious assumption. The hidden truth behind why assumption works so powerfully is that your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and actual experiences. When you consistently rehearse the feeling of financial abundance, your internal guidance system begins directing you toward thoughts, actions, and opportunities that align with that assumed reality. Now, this brings us to the fourth divine law that amplifies everything we've discussed so far through a practice that most people completely misunderstand: the law of tithing. With word reveals that tithing is not religious obligation, guilt-driven duty, or superstitious ritual. It's spiritual alignment that activates abundant flow when done with conscious declaration and specific intention. Most people approach giving from exactly the wrong frequency. They give money and hope for the best, treating tithing like a cosmic lottery ticket where they're not sure if anything will come back. But the few who understand this law give money and command return through spoken word, transforming ordinary giving into powerful spiritual activation that the universe must respond to. Behind the scenes of every person who experiences miraculous returns on their giving is someone who learned to tithe with word, not just with money. They don't give silently and hope. They give boldly and declare. They don't tithe from fear of consequence, but from confidence in cosmic law. The impact of this approach completely changes your relationship with generosity because you're no longer losing money when you give. You're investing in guaranteed multiplication. The journey toward mastering tithing with word requires understanding that your spoken declaration over every gift, donation, or tithe is what activates the return mechanism. The revelations that come through this practice extend far beyond financial return because you begin witnessing how conscious direction transforms every form of energy exchange in your experience. Write in the comments, "I tithe with declaration," if you're ready to transform your giving from hopeful gesture into powerful spiritual command that activates guaranteed return. This understanding takes tithing to its deepest spiritual level because true tithing is not about giving to individuals, organizations, or even causes you believe in. It's about giving to spiritual principle itself, acknowledging that spirit is your ultimate source rather than any person, job, or institution. When you tithe from this perspective, you're not trying to support someone else's work. You're honoring the universal law that governs all supply and circulation. The transformation happens when you realize that authentic tithing is done from covenant rather than emotion. It's not about feeling moved by someone's story, guilted into giving, or hoping to earn favor through generosity. It's about entering into spiritual contract with the law of circulation itself, sealing your participation in divine flow through conscious giving that acknowledges the source of all abundance. Think about this shift in your own giving patterns. When you give to principle rather than personality, you're no longer dependent on how others use your gift or whether they appreciate your generosity. You're not giving to get emotional satisfaction or recognition. You're giving to activate cosmic law that must respond regardless of human variables or external circumstances. The hidden truth behind exponential returns on giving is that someone learned to tithe as spiritual practice rather than emotional response. Behind the scenes of every miraculous multiplication is a person who understood that their giving was actually a declaration of faith in universal supply, not a transaction with limited human resources. But here's where most people miss the full power of this practice. You must never give in silence again. Every act of generosity must be accompanied by spoken declaration that waters the seed you're planting with your voice. Most people give money and walk away, treating their generosity like a gamble where they hope something good might happen. But when you speak over every gift, affirming its increase and expecting its return, you transform ordinary giving into spiritual command that the universe must honor. The impact of this practice is immediate because you're no longer wondering if your giving will produce results. You're actively programming its multiplication through conscious declaration. The journey toward mastering declared giving requires developing the habit of never releasing money without speaking your expectation over it, understanding that your words are the activating force that distinguishes random generosity from strategic spiritual investment. The revelations that come through this practice teach you that every seed you plant in any area of life requires the water of spoken word to produce maximum harvest, whether you're planting financial seeds, relationship seeds, business seeds, or creative seeds. Write in the comments, "I speak over every seed," if you're ready to transform your giving from silent hope into powerful spiritual activation through conscious declaration. Now, the first 4 laws create incredible momentum toward abundance, but there's a 5th divine law that determines whether all your efforts will succeed or sabotage themselves through internal contradiction. The law of agreement reveals that you cannot say one thing and believe another without creating vibrational chaos that blocks your manifestation. Agreement means sacred harmony between what you say, what you believe, and what you genuinely expect to happen in your experience. Most people unknowingly violate this law constantly, creating internal warfare that neutralizes their abundance efforts. They affirm wealth in the morning but worry about bills at night. They declare prosperity while making jokes about being broke. They speak abundance but expect struggle. This contradiction creates scrambled signals that confuse the universe and delay financial breakthrough indefinitely. The transformation happens when you realize that true agreement isn't just about positive thinking. It's about achieving complete vibrational coherence between your conscious desires and your subconscious programming. When your inner and outer word finally align, you become magnetic to matching abundance because there's no internal resistance disrupting your signal. Think about this challenge in your own experience. How often do you catch yourself speaking abundance while feeling scarcity? How frequently do you affirm prosperity while your deeper beliefs whisper doubts about your worthiness or capability? The hidden truth behind why some people manifest quickly while others struggle for years is found in this internal agreement between all levels of their being. But here's where this gets really powerful. You must consciously burn your contracts with scarcity. Over the years, you've made silent agreements with lack through family patterns that normalized struggle, cultural conditioning that romanticized poverty, and casual conversations that reinforced limitation. These unconscious contracts are still operating in your subconscious, sabotaging your conscious abundance efforts. The journey toward complete agreement requires actively dissolving these old contracts and consciously signing new ones that agree only with wealth, prosperity, and divine supply. Behind the scenes of every sustained financial transformation is someone who did this inner work of contract revision, refusing to honor agreements with lack that were never their true choice. The impact of achieving internal agreement is immediate because your entire being begins broadcasting the same frequency. Your words, thoughts, emotions, and expectations all begin pulling in the same direction rather than working against each other. The revelations that come through this practice extend far beyond money because you discover how internal agreement affects every area of manifestation in your life. Write in the comments, "I choose new agreements," if you're ready to dissolve old contracts with lack and sign fresh agreements that align completely with abundance. Now, this brings us to what might be the most foundational divine law of all. Because even if you master every other principle, your results will always be limited by this 6th law. The law of identity reveals that you can only receive what your identity can hold and attract what your subconscious genuinely believes you're worthy of experiencing. If you see yourself as a struggler, someone who's bad with money, or a person who never gets ahead, the universe has no choice but to mirror that exact limitation back to you. This is where most people hit an invisible ceiling in their financial growth. They might apply abundance techniques, speak positive words, and even experience temporary breakthroughs, but eventually they return to their original financial condition because their core identity hasn't shifted. Your subconscious mind acts like a thermostat, constantly adjusting your external circumstances to match your internal sense of who you are. The transformation happens when you understand that identity change must precede reality change, not the other way around. Most people wait for external circumstances to shift before they allow themselves to feel wealthy, successful, or abundant. But according to spiritual law, you must replace every old label with new identity statements first. then reality reshapes itself to match your new self-concept. Think about the labels you've carried about yourself and money. I'm not good with numbers. Money doesn't come easily to me. I'm just not the wealthy type. Rich people are different from me. Every one of these identity statements functions like a spiritual contract that limits what you can receive because your subconscious mind will sabotage any opportunity that conflicts with your established sense of self. The hidden truth behind lasting financial transformation is that someone consciously replaced statements like, "I'm bad with money," with "I am wealth in motion." They stopped identifying as someone who struggles and started embodying the identity of someone for whom abundance flows naturally. Behind the scenes of every sustained prosperity story is this fundamental identity shift that preceded all external changes: the journey toward identity. Transformation requires daily repetition of new self-concepts until they feel more natural than the old limiting labels. You must speak your new identity aloud, think from your new identity, and make decisions from your new identity until your subconscious finally accepts this upgraded version of who you are. The impact of this work is profound because once identity truly changes through conscious repetition, reality must follow according to spiritual law. The revelations that come through identity transformation extend far beyond money because you discover that every area of your life reflects back your deepest beliefs about who you are and what you deserve to experience. Write in the comments, "I am wealth in motion," if you're ready to replace old financial identity labels with new abundance statements that reshape your entire reality. Now, all 6 laws we've explored create incredible potential for financial transformation, but there's a 7th and final divine law that determines whether you'll actually experience lasting change or simply remain an educated observer of spiritual principles. The law of obedience reveals that you cannot command money if you refuse to obey spiritual law consistently. This isn't about achieving perfection or never making mistakes. It's about developing the kind of daily, intentional, sacred repetition that reshapes your entire reality through rhythm. Most people approach spiritual principles like a buffet, picking and choosing which laws they'll follow based on their mood, convenience, or current circumstances. They practice abundance techniques when they remember, speak consciously when they feel inspired, and circulate money when it seems easy. But divine law doesn't respond to casual application. It responds to consistent obedience that creates new patterns in your subconscious programming. The transformation happens when you realize that spiritual obedience is the bridge between knowing these laws and living their results. Behind the scenes of every sustained financial breakthrough is someone who made the decision to practice these principles daily, regardless of how they felt, what their circumstances looked like, or whether they saw immediate evidence of change. Think about this challenge in your own journey with these 7 laws. How often have you learned powerful spiritual principles only to apply them sporadically when life got busy or doubt crept in? The hidden truth is that rhythm creates results more than intensity ever will. Someone who practices these laws imperfectly but consistently will always outperform someone who applies them perfectly but occasionally. This understanding leads us to a practical framework that can revolutionize your relationship with money in just 7 days. The 7 Days of Covenant Living Challenge requires you to practice all 7 laws daily as your new rhythm, creating a comprehensive spiritual practice that addresses every aspect of financial manifestation simultaneously. The structure is surprisingly simple, but profoundly effective. Each morning begins with conscious word declaration, speaking your financial reality into existence. Midday involves assumption embodiment, living as if your abundance is already complete. Throughout the day, you practice thought substitution, replacing any scarcity thinking with abundance statements. Evening includes circulation with declaration, releasing money while speaking its return. Finally, you seal each day with expectation practices that anchor your faith in divine provision. The impact of this 7-day intensive creates momentum that most people have never experienced because you're addressing financial transformation from every angle simultaneously rather than hoping one technique will somehow override years of contradictory programming. Write in the comments, "I commit to 7 days," if you're ready to move beyond studying these laws and start living them through consistent daily practice. The beauty of this 7-day framework lies in its precision and simplicity, starting each morning with a command routine that sets your entire day's frequency. The moment you wake, before checking your phone or allowing the world's chaos to infiltrate your consciousness, you begin with the law of the word, declaring, "My voice is the voice of wealth. I speak money into motion." This isn't just reciting words. You're literally programming your subconscious mind and announcing to the universe your financial intentions for the day. Immediately following this declaration, you embody the law of assumption by consciously shifting into living as though your supply is already released. This means making your morning coffee as someone who is financially free, choosing your clothes as someone whose abundance is secured, and planning your day from the mindset of someone whose prosperity is already manifesting. The transformation happens in these seemingly small moments because you're training your nervous system to operate from abundance rather than anxiety. As your day unfolds, the midday alignment practice becomes your spiritual anchor point, especially when the world tries to pull you back into old patterns of thinking. This is where the law of substitution becomes your most powerful tool. The moment you catch yourself thinking thoughts of lack, doubt, fear, or delay, you immediately interrupt that pattern and replace it with, "I am divinely provided for. There is no loss." In spirit. Think about how radical this practice actually is. Most people allow hundreds of scarcity thoughts to pass through their minds unchallenged throughout the day, each one reinforcing their financial limitations. But when you become vigilant about thought substitution, you're essentially rewiring your mental patterns in real time, refusing to allow your mind to rehearse lack when you could be rehearsing abundance. The hidden truth behind why this midday practice is so effective is that your subconscious mind doesn't distinguish between repetition that happens during formal meditation and repetition that happens during daily life. Every time you substitute a fear-based thought with an abundance-based declaration, you're making a deposit in your spiritual bank account that accumulates interest throughout the day. Behind the scenes of every financial breakthrough is someone who learned to guard their thoughts as carefully as they guard their physical possessions. Understanding that mental discipline creates material results. The impact of consistent thought substitution extends far beyond money because you begin experiencing how conscious mental direction affects every area of your life experience. The journey through this 7-day practice reveals layer after layer of unconscious programming that has been silently sabotaging your financial efforts, while simultaneously installing new patterns that naturally attract abundance. Write in the comments, "I guard my thoughts," if you're ready to practice vigilant thought substitution and refuse to allow scarcity thinking to sabotage your abundance efforts. As the day draws to a close, the evening seal ritual becomes the most powerful moment in your entire spiritual practice, because this is where you activate the law of circulation with absolute intention and divine declaration. Whether you're tithing to spiritual principle, giving to someone in need, or simply circulating money through normal transactions, you never release a single dollar without speaking over it. This seed is blessed, it returns to me multiplied, it opens doors no man can shut. This practice transforms ordinary money movement into extraordinary spiritual activation because you're programming every financial release with expectation of increase rather than fear of loss. Most people pay bills with resentment, give money with anxiety, or spend with worry about whether they'll have enough. But when you speak blessing over every dollar that leaves your hands, you're essentially commanding the universe to honor your circulation with abundant return. The transformation happens when you realize that this evening declaration isn't just hope or positive thinking, it's spiritual law in action. You're not asking the universe to maybe bless your giving. You're declaring that divine law must respond to your conscious circulation with multiplication. Behind the scenes of every financial miracle is someone who learned to speak over their money with this level of authority and expectation. Following your circulation declarations, you seal the entire day with expectation statements that anchor your faith in divine provision. This isn't passive hoping, but active commanding, declaring that your supply is already on its way, that opportunities are already arranging themselves, and that abundance is already flowing toward you through channels you haven't even imagined yet. But here's where this entire 7-day practice culminates in the most powerful spiritual statement you can make about your relationship with money. You seal all your practices with the ultimate declaration of authority. Because I obey divine law, money cannot ignore me. This becomes your spiritual sword, your rhythm, and your reprogramming tool that literally makes the external world bend to match your internal frequency. Think about the profound shift this represents in your relationship with abundance. You're no longer begging the universe for financial breakthrough or wondering if you deserve prosperity. You're declaring that your obedience to spiritual law creates an irresistible magnetic pull that money must respond to. The hidden truth behind this declaration is that it positions you as a spiritual authority rather than a financial victim. If you've stayed with me through this entire journey of the 7 divine laws, you're clearly someone who's ready for real transformation, not just surface-level motivation. The fact that you're still here tells me everything I need to know about your commitment to changing your financial reality through spiritual alignment rather than just hoping for lucky breaks. These laws we've explored together aren't going anywhere. They'll be working in your life whether you consciously apply them or not. But now you have the choice to work with them intentionally, to become someone who commands abundance rather than chases it. This is exactly the kind of deep, practical, spiritual content I share here because I believe you deserve to understand how the universe actually operates behind the scenes. If this resonates with you, if you can feel these principles stirring something inside that knows this is your path forward, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. There's so much more to explore about the intersection of spiritual law and practical abundance, and I want to continue this conversation with you. Let me know you made it all the way through by writing "I'm ready to command" in the comments below. When I see that phrase, I'll know you're serious about this transformation and not just looking for quick fixes or temporary inspiration. And if this content created that spark of recognition, that feeling of, this is what I've been looking for, go ahead and hit the like button. It helps me know these deeper teachings are reaching the right people, those who are ready to do the inner work that creates outer change. There's a video right here that complements this topic perfectly, diving even deeper into how your spiritual identity shapes your material reality. Click and continue with me over there, because this is just the beginning of what's possible when you align with divine law.